Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to give it just about a minute to have people file in, and so we can have the Facebook feed start as well. So just wanted to welcome everyone, make sure that your audio is working, and we'll start in just a moment. All right. Looks like we've got a couple people trickling in here, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Vanook, the Executive Director of Library Reads. If you are not already familiar with Library Reads, I'm not going to take up your time tonight to tell you about it. Please go and look at our website, which is libraryreads.org. The main thing that we do, besides working with wonderful publishers like Sourcebooks, is we create a top 10 list that actually you create as library staff. We take your votes every month for new and upcoming books. We put them into a top 10 list, and that can all be found on our website. We also offer readers advisory training, and we are back to giving out funding for conference attendance. And if your library is looking to bring an author in and needs money for that, we've got some for you. So check out our website. You can find it all there. But tonight is the 22nd, I cannot believe we've done this almost 2 years, 22nd installment of Mystery at the Library, brought to you by Sourcebooks and our friends at Baker and Taylor. So you're here with me on Zoom. We're also streaming tonight on Facebook Live. So welcome to any of our Facebook friends. I am so thrilled to be here tonight with the critically acclaimed author, Reavis Z. Wortham. He's going to talk about his newest title, The Texas Job. And before we dig into that, we've got our usual housekeeping items to share. If you've got questions for Reavis tonight, and I know you do, our audience is always the best at giving us the good questions. You will have a Google form come up shortly in the chat. That's going to be linked there, and you can enter your questions there, and then the fine folks at Sourcebooks will feed them over to us. So we'll do that as the second half of our program. When you ask a question, or if you participate in tonight's trivia poll, you'll be entered to win a mystery book bundle. The winners will be announced at the conclusion. So without any further ado, let's begin with a little bit about Reavis. Reavis Z. Wortham is the critically acclaimed two-time Spur Award-winning author of the Red River Mysteries, set in rural Northeast Texas in the 1960s. As a boy, he hunted and fished the river bottoms near Chicago, the inspiration for the fictional location. He is also the author of a thriller series featuring Texas Ranger Sonny Hawk. He teaches writing at a wide variety of venues, including local libraries and writers' conferences. Wortham has been a newspaper columnist and magazine writer since 1988 and has been the humor editor for Texas Fish and Game magazine for the past 22 years. He and his wife, Shauna, live in Northeast Texas. Hello, Reavis. I am so glad that you are joining us this evening. It's really nice to be here with you tonight.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's an honor to be here with you too. I love doing these kind of interviews, Zoom calls, and as much as I love to sit and talk with people in person too. So if I'm ever at a conference or somewhere close by, y'all come on out and we'll just visit and talk about whatever you want to. Writing, life, the country, anything in the world you want.
That sounds awesome. He's already told me he likes to just find a place to park at the bar. So I think we should all just meet him there. He'll be easy to spot, right? So before we get into our questions tonight, we're going to go off script for a second because I would like you to please show off your office. I think we are going to have a lot of jealous library folks here tonight when they see what's happening behind you there.
Well, thanks. You know, we bought this house and renovated it 3 years ago, and I at that time I said I wanted the library that I've always dreamed of, and so we designed it. We had a professional come in and create this library that goes up about 14 feet that way. And
look at that.
Wraps around, and there's a ladder that my high school librarian daughter loves. It's almost like Harry Potter when she's over here. She's 34 years old. She gets up there on that ladder and slides around. So and it keeps going all the way around, but I've got to scream up here for the light or whatever. But it's a pretty good sized library. It goes all the way down both sides. So it's
Love it.
it's a great workspace because I'm surrounded by friends that I never met, you know, all the authors, and I'm surrounded by all these characters, and they're all inspirations to me in my work, and have been since I was a kid. Some of these books were some that I bought when I was in high school and started my collection.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for showing that off.
You're welcome.
And so we started talking a little bit beforehand, and we're questioning something, and then he's like, "Oh no, it goes up!" And
It goes up. Well, I mean,
fabulous.
if I panned over this way, I have Barrister bookcases. I'm a Stephen King collector and a Jeffrey Deaver collector, David Morrell collector. So I've had Barrister bookcases all over the place too, and they're full of their books.
I love it. That is fabulous. That's fabulous. Well, speaking of books, let's talk about your books. All right. So we actually have the first question coming from librarians participating in the Baker and Taylor Mystery at the Library Book Club. And they would like to know how location shapes your stories.
Well, location is the story in everything that I do. My locations are actual characters. We have people that we create fictional characters, but you have to have someplace to put them. And I have always been very strong in creating and putting my creations into a world that I hope people can see through my description and through the course of the novel, that they can get a feel of this country. For example, in the most recent Texas job, it takes place in Northeast Texas in the early 1930s, and in East Texas is a world of water. It rains out there a lot. It's damp. It's humid. It is a place that is unique unto itself. It's not as wet as the lower half of Texas or the lower eastern half of Texas or Louisiana, but at the same time, it has its own unique characteristics. And so I try to bring those characteristics to the page and to my readers. And you know, the time is very important. Also, you have to make sure that you put yourself accurately in that time, your descriptions of what it was like, what it smelled like. You know, it took place in the oil fields, one of the biggest oil producing fields in the world at that time. And so, you know, you could ride a horse or drive in a Model T down a dirt road and experience 100 years previous, or maybe 50 years in the future when cars, you know, were even more popular and the smell of oil and gasoline filled our world. So you got the rural aspect, and you got the industrial aspect. So yeah, setting and place is extremely important to me and every author. If we don't nail that, then we're lost at the outset.
Mm-hmm. So knowing that that's where you're from, I'm assuming a lot of the things that you put into the location and scenery come from your actual experience. Do you ever find that you have to maybe research a little bit about, okay, am I really getting this detail right? Especially since we're talking about a different time period. I mean, I'm sure you were like all of what, maybe 3 or 4 in the 60s. So, you know, do you have to get,
You're sweet. I like you. Just keep talking, girl. Keep on talking. My first Red River novel, The Rock Hole, was set in 1964, and I was 10 years old at that time. But I was raised by people who, rural country folks who survived the Great Depression. And the people that I grew up with, even the 50s and early 60s, you could have taken a picture of them in the 60s and put it next to their pictures in the 30s, and it would look the same.
okay.
They didn't change that much. They learned a lesson at that time. And I'm gonna say old folks, because they were probably younger than I am today, and I'm 68. But the old folks, you know, they stuck with the clothes that they were wearing back in those days. They didn't change a lot. Their way of life didn't change. It was a rural way of, you know, pre-1940, before World War II, this country was 70 or 75% rural, the remainder urban. And now it's completely flip-flop. It's the other way. But these are people that were raised close to the ground. Let's say they wrested their living from the ground and from the stock that they raised and their way of life. So I I didn't have to create that. I lived it with them, even
Okay.
though I didn't live through the Depression. But at the same time, it takes place in East Texas. I was half raised up in Northeast Texas, north of Paris, Texas, up along the Texas-Oklahoma border. The other part of the time was in the Dallas area. So I saw both sides of the coin, the rural countryside and then the city aspect. And I lived and breathed everything that is in the books. I've ridden through pastures on horses. I've had locusts, and grasshoppers fly up under the horse's hooves. The book starts out, the Texas job starts out with a Texas Ranger riding down the road on a horse in 1931. Well, they had ways of getting around. We had mechanized vehicles at that time, but it was easier for him to sneak up on someone he was planning to arrest on horseback. They wouldn't hear him coming. And so the shift had not changed at that time. It hadn't completely flipped over to a mechanized way of life. And so Tom Bell, the protagonist in the Texas job, Tom Bell is riding into a small oil town that's a huge boom town, Gladewater, Liberty City, in that area, on a horse like he did when he was younger in the older days. But he was riding into a huge change in this country as the oil boom took hold and as industrialization took over and mechanization took over. He was walking a line between both of those worlds, and essentially that's what I did here too. When I was growing up, I was watching that line dim and gray, and watch people move from one mechanized way of farming. My granddad and my uncle, when I was little, really little, still plowed with a horse and a mule.
Oh, wow.
Some small areas. And so I watched them switch over to John Deere tractors, we call Poppin' Johnnies, and a different way of life. So what I tried to create there in the Texas job was that feeling of change, but of people holding on to their roots at the same time.
Very interesting. So right. So the Texas job, inspired by the whole East Texas boom towns, the oil boom towns, lawlessness that came with it. So knowing that this is where you're from, this is the setting, did you always kind of feel like I'm going to write about this someday? Like as you were growing up, were you like this, it's so in me that I want to tell stories of the people here and the places here? Did you kind of always have that feeling, or did you sort of just, they always say, write what you know, right? So tell me a little bit about, I know hopefully lawlessness is not
Oh, it's still here. It's still around. Let me tell you. Yeah, for sure. My granddad was a farmer and a constable, a rural constable back in those days. So I saw both sides of the coin when he was working. And yeah, I always wanted to write about it. I grew up listening to the stories that the old men, again, the old men. We had we had country stores, and my granddad, his way of being a lawman was to go up to the store and get to know everybody and listen to the stories. And he knew more about what was going on in town than anybody in that community. So I would go with him and sit and just listen to the old guys talking. They'd forget that I was there. Sometimes I'd hear more than I probably should have, but they would forget that I was there. And I was collecting those stories. I knew I would use them at some point, and they eventually became the first novel, the Rock Hole, the first in the Red River series. But the more I looked at the 60s, and I lived through the 60s, I think anyone that reads the Red River series will get a very rich sense of what it was like to grow up at that period of time in rural Northeast Texas. But I always wanted to write something about the Great Depression too. The Depression fascinated me, and it still does. But when I got ready to write this first one, I spoke to some people, and I had more than one person advise me, don't set the novel in the Depression because it's too depressing. Set it in World War II. I thought, well, that's not a big change. It was not fun and games then either. But I really wanted to set something in the Depression, because other than Steinbeck, there's not a whole lot written about that period of time, the Dust Bowl days.
Yeah, fiction wise, there's really not. Right.
Yeah, there's some, but not a lot.
Mhm.
And I wanted to look beneath the veneer of what we've known about the boom towns. Western boom towns and traditional westerns are always out west, and gold mines and
Mhm.
silver mines or Alaska. But this oil boom was vicious at that time. There was those little communities were exploding. Longview, Liberty City, Kilgore, especially Kilgore. It was a rough town. Lawless people moved in. There was, you name it, it was going on at one point or another. It got so bad that the Texas Rangers had to send in Lone Wolf Gonzalez, who is a legend here in Texas, to go in and clean it up. And I think he rode it into town in a specially designed Ford that had more guns than an armory. And from what I hear, he he had to shoot 3 or 4 people as soon as he got to town to get their attention. And he created something called the Gonzalez, the Lone Wolf Chain Gang, where he would go out and arrest people all day long and hook them up to a chain and then make them walk back to the courthouse and chain them out front because they didn't have the facilities to keep up with all the crime that was going on. So it was a fascinating time to me, and I wanted that character Tom Bell to be in that environment so that we could look in Tom Bell's past, because I got a lot of questions about that character in the Red River books.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second, actually. So the Texas Job is actually, it's a prequel to the whole Red River Mystery series. So why did you decide to write a prequel instead of just the next book going forward? Is it because you've had so many questions about it? Tom's story was just waiting to be told? Tell us a little insight on that.
I'm so random. I'm all over the page. That's what happened. I'd written a number of the Red River books and got to about 1969 with Top and Pepper, the two children protagonists, and Ned and Miss Becky, and I'm going to continue with those because I'm working on the next one right now. But at that point, when I got to 69, Tom Bell was becoming a very important character. I created him in book 3 in The Right Side of Wrong because I needed a character to come in and turn everything sideways, and I needed a mystery character, and so I created Tom Bell out of whole cloth to come in and try to lead these kids in the right direction and bring some mystery, as I said, to that third book. And he was a great character. He did his job for me. He became more than what I expected, and he became a stronger character. That he was threatening to take everything over as I worked. And I don't outline. I don't have any idea where my books are going, so I just follow the flow. And the next thing I know, Tom Bell is really getting strong, and I needed him to help get some of my characters across the river from a Mexican prison into the United States. That was Tom's job, the ultimate job, and he's a retired Texas Ranger in 1967. And in 1967. So he served his purpose. He covered for everybody as they escaped, and I left him for dead in Mexico at the end of that book. Well, every signing thereafter, I had my rear end by people that fell in love with this character.
Sure.
And after 2 years passed, I had this one lady come up, and 2 of my characters are Top and Pepper, the 2 kids that are in and Pepper is a pistol. Let me tell you, she's a little firecracker tomboy. And a lady came up to me at a signing, and she said, "Here's what I need out of you." She goes, you can drown Pepper in the Red River on your next book. I don't care, but I want Tom Bell back. And that kind of clicked with me. It was funny. And I thought, well, let me see if I can get him back. Well, I had forgotten what I wrote. So I went back and reread the end of my own work and realized Tom wasn't dead. He was left for dead, but he wasn't. And so I brought him back in another novel, and then he has become stronger and stronger. And then people started saying, well, I need to know about this guy. He is this tough, old, retired ranger that, I don't know, have you ever heard of a writer named Jan Reed? He was a hugely popular writer here in the state of Texas for decades, very popular. And Jan told me, we became very good friends. He said, you have the strongest, the perkiest old men I've ever seen. He said, I like this character, do something with him. So that, I thought about that for a long time. And then one day I thought, let's explore Tom Bell. Let's go back and look and see what made him that tough ranger that he truly is. And the best way to do that is to go back, not when he was really young, but when he was in the Rangers in 1931, after having survived World War I, and we see what made Tom Bell what he is in the Texas Job.
Very interesting. I love hearing that kind of inside scoop on how, how your next book came to you. And that's a perfect like explanation of that. That's really
Thank
great.
you.
So switching off just for a second from your books, you've written thousands of columns for newspapers and articles for magazines. So can you tell us a little bit about how short form writing like that is different from writing or writing novels, and maybe what's similar about it? We'd love to hear more about your writing background.
Okay, well, I started writing newspaper columns in 1988. I'd been trying for a long time to write. I'm one of those writers, and if you talk to enough authors, you'll find out that we all have books in our drawer that will never see the light of day. I tried that for a long time, and I just wasn't getting anywhere with it because I hadn't truly found my writing voice, and that's a hard thing to teach. And that was the hardest thing for me to get. I knew what I liked, but I didn't have a good definition of writing voice. And then one day I was sitting at a meeting, and my coworker was sitting next to me, and she was writing on a yellow legal pad. And it wasn't a meeting that we need to be taking notes at. We were just there to answer questions later. But she was taking a lot of notes, I thought. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "Well, I'm writing a newspaper column for the Dallas Morning News." And I said, "Well, congratulations. I didn't know you were a columnist." She goes, "Columnist." And she said, "Well, I'm not, but from what I've read, anybody can write, because look at the what's in the newspapers these days." Well, that just irritated me to no end. And I thought, it's not that easy, because I've been trying to write since I was a kid. I was submitting stories to Reader's Digest in 1967 and 68. I had boxes of rejection notices. So I penned my very first newspaper column and sold it to the Paris News. And by 1998, 99, I was self-syndicated in over 50 papers and talking to Kingfisher Syndicate about becoming an outdoor, as they put it, an outdoor Dave Barry, which was going to be great. I mean, it was outdoor humor and it was fun. But when the internet came in, columnists fell out, and I had to look for something else. So, but I kept on. I'm still writing for 3 different papers, and I write columns every week. In fact, when we are finished here, I'm going to have to write one because I missed my deadline today. But writing those really helped me polish what I was doing. There are 3 acts to every novel. Act 1, 2, and 3. Act 1 sets it up. Act 2, you put all the pieces together. In Act 3, the dominoes fall and we reach the end. And in writing a newspaper column is the same way, but it's in a much shorter format. So I learned to write tight. I really did. And that's the one thing I had to get out of the habit of doing. Writing novels, people want more detail, more rich ingredients than you can put into a newspaper column. And I explored writing how-to hunting and fishing, outdoor camping. We call them hook and bullet in the outdoor business. But I had to do a lot of research. I had to make sure everything was absolutely right in those, and you can't make anything up because it's not fiction. And I thought, what, I really like writing fiction better. Well, you can lie and get paid for it. It's a great thing. My dad never understood that, but it is. So I polished my writing skills with those newspaper columns, and it helps me today because you need to write every day if you can, and it keeps you polished as you go along. And then, that transferred over to writing novels. And then I just expanded it out and brought more detail and more characters into my books.
Okay. It's a great segue into my next question, actually, which is talking about your writing schedule and your writing life. So one of the things that we always get in our Q&A time, all of the audience is really excited to hear about how authors, how do you structure this as your job? How do you do this? We've got some people who get up every day they start writing, they have a certain number of hours or a certain number of pages that they need to hit. We've got other people who are like, nope, I write when the spirit moves me and I just whip out that pen and paper and start jotting stuff down. You've already revealed to us that you don't outline your stuff and the stuff just kind of comes to you. So tell us about writing a book Reavis style.
It's called organized chaos is what it is.
Organized chaos.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I used to for a long time. Well, when I first wrote my first novel, I was still working before I retired. So I would write in the mornings before work. I would write at lunch. When I grabbed some time at home, I had a pen and a pad in the truck. I would write little snippets of conversation sitting at a light. I was always trying to do something. I shoot for 500 to 1,000 words a day. That's my goal. It's not going to happen. I have grandkids over here a lot. We have them from 18 months to third and fourth grade. They're over here more than you would expect, so they get their share of the time. But I try to write as much as I possibly can. I tell beginning writers, write every day. That should be your goal. Write every single day. Get something down. Get 500 words down at the very least. But I don't get that because it's life. Life gets in the way. Like I said, I was on deadline today for a newspaper column, but I had to attend the funeral for a very good friend. So
sorry.
Thank you. And he was a good man. And things get. His name was Joe Crumpton, by the way, and he was a Vietnam vet, and he was solid man. And in fact, his funeral was attended by more law enforcement officers than I've ever seen it one since my granddad passed away. But I couldn't write today, but I can write tonight. I'll write tomorrow. I'm getting to the point. I'm doing page edits for a new series with Source Books called the Tucker Snow series. Those page edits are almost finished right now. So when I get this out of the way, then I'm going to dive back into the next novel. My deadline is March 1. So I will have to get after it. But there are days, and I promise you, this is no lie. There are days I can get 5 pages. Very easy. There have been times that I've gotten 14,000 words in one day. I mean, and it's a huge amount of writing in a single day. So I can do it when I need to. As I start working on this novel, I will devote more and more time every day to sitting down. I will try to write every single day that I can. And if I can get 5 pages a day, man, that's great. That's my personal goal. But here's the other thing. I'm working on 3 novels at the same time.
That's where it gets a little tricky, huh?
That's where it gets, because you get your 5 pages for each novel per day if you can do it. But then at some point, here's what's going to happen. One of them's going to take over, and then I'm going to follow them out. And so I'll crank that novel out, and I may get it finished up in 3 months. During COVID, I had a dream one night, and it's a weird Western that I dreamed. It was a horror Western. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, came in here and sat here in my office and started writing. I wrote the entire novel in 6 weeks. And so, if you're caught up in the flow of that literary river, you go with it. But I understand life's in the way, kids, grandkids, jobs. But if you really want to be an author, you can do it. You just have to make yourself right and put your rear in the seat and do it every day if you can.
That is some excellent advice. I love it. I love that idea of being in the river of ideas, and just you have to go along with it. You can't fight the current, right? Because no one ever wins.
No, your characters take over and your story takes over. And just in the truck today, coming back from this funeral, and it was an hour and a half out of Dallas, relatively speaking, so you get a reference to where we are. Ideas started to percolate, and the new Tucker Snow novel that I'm getting ready to work on. So it kind of organizes itself mentally, but without a hard outline. All
right. Thank you for sharing that. This is exactly the kind of stuff that we love these interviews for, is getting into the brains of our authors like that.
That's a
So
scary place.
right. Sometimes we can't get out of the brain of our authors, and that's
Yeah.
when I get a little like, what have I just done, right?
What have I overdone?
So we are at our halfway point here. So let's move into our trivia, shall we? And then we'll go ahead and take our audience questions. So now is a good time. If you've got your burning questions for Reavis, go ahead and put those on that Google form so our source books folks can get that over to us. So we have trivia tonight based on, so the Texas job is full of good old Texas sayings or Texasisms. Do you actually call them Texasisms? Is that
Well, you know what? I call them old timey phrases and words.
okay?
And I,
Consarn it.
on my Facebook page, we talk about a lot of those old words. We do the old timey word of the day or or whatever.
Nice.
So yeah, in these books that I write, all the novels I write, I try to preserve the Texas way of talking that's rapidly fading away right now as the old people
Mhm.
are leaving this world. And so I'm
Yeah.
trying to maintain the way we all talk or the old timers talk.
I love it. I love it. So let's see if some of our readers can recognize what some of these Texasisms mean. So we're going to have a poll pop up on your screen in just a moment. And for our Facebook Live participants, the question is going to be entered into the comments section for you to answer. Don't forget, every time you participate in the poll or ask a question, you'll be entered to win one of those mystery book prize packs. So the first one is up. What does the saying high cotton mean? So choose one of those. We'll reveal all three of them at the end. And while you guys are looking at those and thinking about that, because Reavis and I already know the answers to this, I would like Reavis to tell us though some of his books that he likes to read. So do you read Texas set stories? Do you read mysteries? I know you already told me how much you love Stephen King. I do too. I wish we would have talked about that before. We could have had a good chat about the stuff I'm collecting from him. What do you like to read, and what are you reading these days that you would recommend to folks?
Oh Lord, I read everything I get my hands on. I love biographies. I love thrillers, science fiction. Since I started writing more and more Westerns, I've gotten back to reading older Westerns again. So,
Okay.
right now, one of the books I have out and I have several books going that I read. I have them all over the house. Wherever I sit, I pick it up. And people ask me, how can you read a book in one chair and then go in another room and start another book? It's like watching your favorite TV series. You know the characters, you know the story.
Yeah.
And so I just started James Lee Burke's newest novel, All Cloaks Rolled in Blood. I love James Lee Burke. He's one of the finest writers I've ever read, one of the finest authors I've ever met. And so that's one of them I'm working on. I ran across a Tony Hillerman novel just the other day, one of his very first at an antique store out in Sedona. And so I've started it. It's called Ghost Way, and I'm gonna start reading it. John Gilstrap, my buddy John, he's got a novel out, so I'm reading Gilstrap. I've got a Deaver going. I've got a Rick Bragg novel, who's a columnist, I think in the Carolinas or down south somewhere back in southern states. So I have a lot of guys going, a lot of guys and gals going that I read whenever I get enough time to sit down, when I'm not wrangling, when I'm not, trying to hem up grandkids or write on the newspaper column. And I also write a bi-weekly blog, by the way, for a blog called the Kill Zone blog. So every other Saturday, I have a blog post on being an author and writing and how to teach people to do what I do. It took me
great. I bet we can get our folks at Sourcebooks to find that and put a link of it. Put a link to the Kill Zone. That's the name of the website. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have them look that up and pop it into the chat there for our audience to go check that out.
Good.
So we had the second question flew by there, and I'm laughing because that's what I say to my kids all the time is, what does the saying straighten up and fly right mean? So I think you can guess just based on that one. And now we've got our third one was just up, and that's saying holler calf rope. I've never heard of that one. So we'll see what people have guessed. So question one, high cotton means that things are good. Is that our...
That's true. That's an old, that originated in the antebellum South when they raised cotton really tall, so it'd be easier to pick. the higher the cotton, the easier it was to pick, and you'd make more money. So that's where that
Summertime and the living is easy.
never, it was
And
not.
the
It was
cotton
not.
is high, right?
No, I picked cotton when I was a kid. I know it's not easy. I can promise you
Not
that.
easy, not easy. All right, question 2, straighten up and fly right, boys. That's right. Improve your behavior. I
That's it.
always like that one. I think I just said it yesterday, as a matter of fact, to one of my boys.
Yeah, and that one originated in the 40s during World War II, from what I understand.
Ah,
And then a Nat King Cole song came out in 43 about straighten up and fly right. And, it stuck with everybody. I'm sure it was older than that, but older saying than that, but it stuck with everybody after that song too.
I like it. I like it. All right. And then our third one, holler calf rope. That means to surrender. Tell me, I'm not familiar with that. I don't know what I would have guessed. I probably would have said climb up a rope. I don't know. So tell us what the origination of that is.
It comes from the old saying, give somebody enough rope and they'll hang themselves. But it's another version of crying uncle. You held down, say uncle, I'll let you up. Well, here in Texas, is if you'll holler calf rope, I'll let you up. You've lost, and that's where that one came from.
Got it. All right. So I think everybody made some pretty good guesses there, or they actually knew what they were. So nice job, everyone. Nice job. And now move into the best part of the evening, into our audience Q&A. And I had one come up real early on. Where did that one go? Got to scroll up my chat here. Lots of people commenting on how much they love the ladder. You've got the whole Beauty and the Beast library going on there. I love it. I love it. But we had a question that came. Where did it go? Oh, here we go. Got a question from, I hope I'm going to say her name right, Valeria. She would like to know, how difficult is it to write a story set in a specific time, place, and period the way that you do? So are you ever tempted to be like, boy, I could make it so much easier if I just let this all happen in the present. I wouldn't have to think about what people used to say. Do you find that difficult, or does it come naturally to you?
It comes naturally. I'm a history buff anyway. And so I always love to write about time before cell phones. It's hard to write a thriller or a mystery novel these days because cell phones get in the way of everything.
Yes.
So I prefer to write about a period of time before we had that. It's easier to structure a mystery or a thriller like that, but it's not difficult at all for me because I love the research part of it.
Okay.
I love research. I love to create these worlds that were, and to make sure that I get all the details accurate. 99.9% of the time, I think I do.
All right. That is an interesting point that you make, Reavis, because I have noticed just in this last year, books that I've been reading, I read a lot of thrillers. I like a lot of, domestic suspense, psychological thrillers. And I have noticed so many of them very purposefully being set in the 90s or the early mid 2000s. Specifically, I think to kind of get away from that cell phone / internet problem. And I found it fascinating. I was like, I wonder if people are kind of like, right, it's too easy to look something up or to look somebody's address up or to, have the phone call track you or whatever. And I wonder if we'll be seeing a lot more of that sort of just at the, pre-cell phone era stuff coming out. Because
I think a lot of people like to try to avoid the cell phones, and we've talked about that. I have a weekly cocktail hour on Zoom with John Gilstrap and Jeffrey Deaver. And we've discussed the technological aspects of how difficult it can be. And in fact, my Sunny Hawk novels that take place, they're contemporary novels down on the Rio Grande and out Big Bend country. Cell phones are a problem. So I dump them as soon as I possibly can and get my characters back out into the old West where I don't have to deal with that. That's one of the things that we absolutely have to do. And the one I'm working on now, the new Tucker Snow, and right now the working title is Gravel. And it comes out in 2023. It's contemporary stock agent or a brand inspector here in Texas. And phones have they reared their ugly heads right off the bat. But I found a way to use them in the novel as the novel progresses. So there's the technology that I hate so much is actually making the novel itself more interesting.
Yeah, that's got to be a really unique challenge for the mystery suspense field, right? I think in romance that it's not so important, except for
Right.
maybe dating stuff. But in general fiction, it's probably not important. But definitely for you guys, that's a really, you got to be that changes what you're writing. So
Right.
that's
It can be
very
a stumbling
interesting.
block. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I have a great question here from Carly. You mentioned that you work on multiple books simultaneously. So do you have any tricks to keep them straight in your mind when you're switching writing before that one takes over clearly? How do you kind of, or don't you? Is it just bedlam?
Well, it's bedlam in here. Let me tell you, there are a lot of people talking to me right now in here, and they do that all the time.
Oh boy, it's
My
exhausting,
wife,
isn't it?
well, my wife has to wake me up some nights because all this is going on, and I'm having these nightmares that I incorporated into the books. But no, it's not difficult at all. It's like when you're watching your TV series in the
Mhm.
evening. As soon as you turn on, let's say Yellowstone, since that's very popular, what's going on, who those characters are, and then you switch over to Two and a Half Men. Just a huge change where what those characters are doing, and what they're like and how the story is going to progress. So it's not difficult for me at all. It's just switching channels and picking up the next thread and following it out to its end for that day.
Okay. And I can imagine you're so well practiced at it that it's kind of second nature, probably, right?
Yeah, I hate to say that because I'm not practicing anything at all. I don't know what I'm doing. Honestly, I pound these keys and
And the words just appear.
the words appear, and sometimes they string together and make sense, and so, but no, it's easy for me to do, and it does come from practice, I think.
Okay.
But there are a lot of people that are more capable of that than I am. I just have been able to overcome the obstacles and just and put them behind me and go on.
Okay. I have two questions in a row here from two of my favorite commenters. And they're grouped together. I'm going to group them together because they're asking about your characters.
Okay.
So the first one I've got from Donna, and she would like to know, Reavis, can you talk about the characteristics of your heroes and your villains? How do you determine how much dark to write into your heroes and how much good or light to keep in your villains? Can you tell us a little bit about choosing characteristics?
Well, we all carry our own darkness. We all
Yeah.
have our own demons, and those demons appear not as actual characters, but the ways that they cause us to think and act. And some characters, and none of mine are alcoholics, but some of the most famous characters, they have alcoholism as an obstacle they have to overcome. My characters have some darkness that they use for good. What my third novel was The Right Side of Wrong. They walk a very fine line sometimes, and sometimes my good guys, and very often my good guys, have to step over the line on occasion to do what they think is right. And that's all we can ask for about anybody that we know is please do the right thing and treat me the way you would, I'd like for you to be treated, and like for me to treat you. And so that's where my protagonists come from. They have high moral standards. They're all family people, because I think family is so important, and we're losing so much of that in this world these days. So they have a very high moral compass. I've been told by my editors and my agent that I write really good bad guys. And in fact, they worry about how good the bad guys are, how bad they are.
You don't want people to like them, Reavis. You don't want people to like them.
And they're all mean as snakes. And so, and I don't give them a whole lot of redeeming characteristics, because I don't want them to have any redemption.
Yeah.
Bad people are bad, and
Yep.
in this black and white world that I write about, I want you to know what they are. And then they are so dark sometimes. My sister-in-law told my wife, you need to keep a baseball bat next to your side of the bed, sleeping next to this guy, because you
Just
never
in
know
case.
what's coming out. I said, don't worry about it. She's got 38, so I'm not worried about it at all. But no, I really want people to fall in love with Tom Bell and Ned Parker and Miss Becky, the people that go to church, that raise their children right, and all they want to do is live their lives and be good people, but they're in law enforcement, and so because of that, they see the darker side of the world, and they have to deal with what these people are, and maybe find out what it was that caused these people to be the villains or the criminals that they are, because there's a story behind every single one of them. And if you really wanted to explore that, I mean, you could spend 500 pages exploring why a bad guy or a bad girl is or the way they are. And then in one of my Sunny Hawk novels, I have a cartel leader who's a female, and she's just about as mean as anything, mean as a rattlesnake, you know. And so that's what I wanted. I wanted people to see that there's darkness in those people, and we really want to. We really want the good guys to win, and in my books, the good guys are going to win, because that's the world I want to live in.
Well, this goes very nicely into that second question then, and the next one is from our friend Miriam, who wants to know, how do you keep track of your characters and their backstories? I think, you know, when you're writing series books, you've got your collective of readers who know sometimes more than the author does. You know, they'll remember it because they didn't have to write it, they're absorbing it. Right. How do you keep track of all those characters? And especially since you write, you know, different series and standalones, and, you know, how do you keep all that? Do you have a paper file? Do you keep it in your head as you're going along? Do you tell us, like, how you keep track of that?
I don't have, you know, a lot of authors have their own writer's Bibles, their of their books and their characteristics. I wish I had done that at the outset. I didn't, and now looking back over 13 novels, it's that's almost insurmountable. You know, I need to hire some college kid to come in and put all that together for me. So everything is in my head. Every bit of it, all the characteristics, all the quirks. It's like people I grew up with. I've created these people and I know them intimately, and I seldom have any problems with the things that I've written. I don't contradict at all. And if I have a question, then I'll just go back and open my book up. And actually, I go back to the computer and open up the script and type in some keywords, or not the script, the manuscript, type in the keywords and find what I need. And my wife is my alpha reader. And so she's a former journalist, great writer herself. She catches all this, and if there's a question, then she'll point it out to her. And she's very good at pointing those out and going, yeah, yes, ma'am, I understand. I made another mistake. I'll try to do better next time.
That's got to be very helpful, though, to have your reader there right alongside you.
Yep, it is.
I love it. All right, we have another question here from Aaron, who would like to know, how long did it take you to write your first book, and was writing your first career choice?
It was my first career choice. However, I would have starved to death had I tried to have been a full-time writer at the outset, because I didn't know what my voice was. And so, I always wanted to write, but it took years to do it. It took decades. Now, here's the thing, and this is part of my workshop, because it's a cautionary tale also. I started writing my first novel in 1999. And it was published in 2010, came out 2011. All right, that's a long time. Well, it's a long time because I was writing in the middle of life, trying to raise kids, do a full-time job. I was the director of communications and crisis management for the Garland Independent School District here in Texas, which was then one of the 10 largest school districts in the state. Okay. And so that was a full-time job. So I would write when I could. And it took me several years, like 5 or 6, to write that first novel. But I wrote it on a dinosaur program, on a dinosaur computer, and on a 5.5-inch floppy disk. Remember those. And when I finally finished the novel, I hit the end and I hit save, and the file corrupted, and I lost the entire manuscript, all those years of work. I took it to a pro tech. He retrieved one page, and so I took that computer and that dinosaur program out in the backyard. I shot it with a 45. Went and bought myself a new computer, and what was then called I'm drawing a blank on it, a different kind of drive, a compact drive or something like that. I don't recall. Okay. What it was. And I started over from memory. And I rewrote the entire novel for the second time. I think it came out better. I think it was better than the first, but it took me then about 3 years to finish that up again, and then send it to my to then find an agent, which is a whole nother story there. But today, like I said, today I can get one, and I think I do a pretty fair job in a matter of months now. But I this is my full-time job now, and I'm experienced. I'm better at it.
Excellent. Thank you for that. All right. We have a question from Suzanne, who would like to know, who is your favorite Western writer?
You talk about traditional Westerns?
Ooh, why don't you give us both contemporary and traditional?
Yeah, see, there you go. My favorite, it's hard to name. Of course, Louis L'Amour is going to be my go-to, because that's what I cut my teeth reading. Louis L'Amour and Max Brand. My middle name, my name is Reavis Z Wortham. My middle name is Zane, after Zane Grey. My mom loved Zane Grey novels. Unfortunately, I can't read the man, so I can't put him down for those novels. But those traditional Western novelists, those are the guys I cut my teeth with. Today, contemporary Westerns, I have got to go with my good buds, and I was reading these guys before I met them. So, but I'm honored to call them friends now. C.J. Box and Craig Dodson. Those are the great contemporary Western writers that we have right now. There are a bunch of others. I'm not excluding a lot of friends that I have in Western Writers Association that write novels, but those two guys really draw me in, and mentally I become part of their stories. So they're really. But Johnny Boggs, out of Santa Fe, Johnny Boggs has won more Spur Awards than anyone in the country, and Johnny's a great writer too. So I'll throw Johnny Boggs into that mix also.
Great, thank you for those recommendations. Okay, we have a question from Pam, who is curious to know if you would ever consider writing about setting your books in any other states, and if so, which one?
You know what? I know this state inside and out. This is my home state. I'm fourth generation Texan, so I know what I write about here. Now I crossed the Red River into Oklahoma. In fact, this new novel I'm working on, the climax occurs in Oklahoma, but Oklahoma is essentially a part of Texas in many ways. So the regions are very similar. I don't want to set anything completely right now into another state, other than with this caveat. I'm working on another novel that I'm about a third of the way through right now, and it starts in Texas, but it's heading for Arizona, and Prescott, Arizona, to be specific, and it's set in 1971. And so we were out there just within the past month to do a little research on that part of the world. I've been out there many times, but I hadn't been out there with the eye to finish a novel up. But I'm not going to set one in Chicago, not going to put one in New York City. I did in one, and let me look here real quick. Gold Dust. Yeah, I had to look way up high on the shelf. Gold Dust started in Texas and wound up in Washington, D.C. And so, I went to that setting, but that's where the story took me. The story did not actually begin there. The plot wound up in D.C. and then wound back over into Missouri before it was over with. So, but I write about what I know, and I've been to those places too, but not enough to build a series in another state.
Got it. Got it. All right. We have a question. Where did it go? From Francis. Francis would like to know, how did you come up with making Tom a younger ranger instead of a more mature or experienced one?
Well, when Tom Bell first appeared in the Right Side of Wrong, he was a retired ranger somewhere in his 70s. Never defined how old he was.
Okay.
So we know he was, I figure late 60s, early 70s. So we got a good look at Tom Bell and still see him. He's in this next Red River that I'm working on. He's getting on up there in years, but he still has his health, still going good. I'm talking about the guy, he's really alive, but he still has his health in the books. He's doing good. So, I love that. My daughters say that I created Tom Bell by looking in the mirror. They say, Dad, Tom Bell is just you when you're old. And I said, well, thank you for not saying I'm old now. So but I wanted to go back and see, as we said earlier, see what made Tom Bell what he is, and what drove him to be kind of the loner that he is. and answer some of the questions that have appeared in the other Red River books that have gone unanswered. He's still a mystery. He's an enigma. No one knows a whole lot about him, but everybody absolutely loves Tom Bell. This is a good fear. I'm afraid he's going to spin off into another series, which is just going to be one more to try to get a good handle on. But James Lee Burke's done it with his, and so I'll follow Mr. Burke's lead and see if I can do it too if it works out that way.
Somehow I have a feeling that you'll handle it just fine.
Thank you.
Moving right on into the next series. No problem. No problem. All right. We have another question. I think we've got time for maybe one or two more questions. Okay. Oh, and hang on. I've got a couple that are just coming in here. Oh, so Donna wants to know, actually, if you were being serious or being facetious, if you actually shot your computer with your 45.
There's a small line there. It was a 9mm. It wasn't 45.
There you go, Donna. Does that answer it for you? Does that answer it for you? There you go. She was very concerned about your poor computer and the corrupted discs.
Yeah. That computer's in a shallow grave, I can tell you.
Right. It's the whole, we got to rage against the machine, and sometimes that machine is a printer.
Yeah, exactly. My writer that inspired me so many years ago, and he's still my favorite author in the world. His name's Robert Rourke. Most people have never heard of him. He wrote a novel that became a Rock Hudson novel called Something of Value. His two books, The Old Man and the Boy, and The Old Man and the Boy Grows Older, were inspirations to me, and they changed my life. They truly sent me on a different path. And so Mr. Rourke, who died in 1964, he said he called his typewriter the Iron Maiden. He said, I'd sit down in front of the Iron Maiden and I'll type out a story or a newspaper column. I call my laptop the Plastic Maiden. So, I've got it strapped to me all the time, and I'm always beating on this keyboard.
Just don't crack the screen when you do that. That's the expensive part.
Well, on occasion we can.
Right. All right. We have time for one more here. We've got one last question here, and that is, you've had many different experiences and done many different things in your life. And so we're curious to know, which one of your characters is most like you? Now, you've already told us your daughters have told you that which one do you think is most like you? And which one of your characters is the easiest to write and the most difficult to write? So kind of a three-pronged question there.
Yeah, and that's an easy answer, because the Red River series is very loosely based on my granddad, who was a constable. And he had it in the series. Ned Parker has a 10-year-old grandson named Top, and Top is me. When I was 10 years old, I have followed, as the years have gone by, these recollections keep rolling up, and I keep including them in the novel. So the Top is most like me in most ways. And good, for good or bad, I'm not real sure, but it'll be Top. And there are things that I could explore that are, again, like I said, we have darkness in them. Some of that may come out, may not. I'm not sure. But if you read the Red River novels, then you'll see some of me in Top, and a little bit of me in Pepper too. But Pepper's a female. But the funny thing about it is I based her on my first cousin, who was a guy we ran together. So I'd introduce him to signings and say, meet Roger. Yeah, he's really Pepper. And he would be embarrassed and hide his face, but it was always fun.
That is very fun. All right. Well, I think that it's probably about time to start wrapping it up. But there seem to be some requests in the chat to see if we could get you to put your cowboy hat on for us.
Okay.
Have I charmed you enough to have that happen?
Yeah, people always want me to take it off when I'm speaking to make sure I've got hair. They think I'm not. But we don't call it a cowboy hat here. We just call it a hat. So there you go.
Nice. Excellent.
There you go.
Here we go. I think all our friends are very happy now.
Well, good. Well, if that's what it takes to please a fan, I'll do it all day. Right. I wear it all day anyway, so I'll be
there. You go. I love it.
I can tilt it back like Sam Elliott every now and then, give you that a little bit. So
I love it. That's now he's getting all into the styling and profiling
That was
here,
my
people.
dad. Yeah, that was my dad.
Just for you guys.
I just
All
sit right there
right.
and let it ride.
Well, thank you so much, Reavis. It was an absolute delight getting to chat with you. I really appreciate you taking your time tonight to sit and talk. Thank you to everyone who participated with us in the event tonight. The winners of the book buzz or the book bundle are there in the chat, so check that out. We've got Valeria, Marilyn, and Pam Brown. So please email Emily Ludoff at sourcebooks.com to give her your address. Really, Reavis, I can't wait to see you at a conference sometime so we can sit at the back bar and have a good, a gin on me. There you go.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, that's where you'll find me at a conference. And if anybody comes to conferences, y'all come over and just say hi. We'll sit and visit. If you do Facebook, come look me up on Facebook. We do a lot of stuff. There are 2 pages, one Reavis Wortham and one Reavis Z Wortham. The Reavis Wortham is the most active. So y'all come over and say hi on that. And I would love to see y'all and hope you take a look at the Red River series, the Sunny Hawk series, and soon to be the Tucker Snow series.
Absolutely. I think you'll see a lot of these fans are going to join you over there on Facebook. I bet. That's fabulous. That is fabulous. Thank you. And again, thank you to everyone for participating tonight. Make sure that you join us for the next Mystery at the Library event. That's going to be Wednesday, July 27th, which is actually the day after my 50th birthday. So I think you all need to come and celebrate my birthday with me. That's going to be at 7 p.m. It's a thriller panel this time. I love it when we get all the extra authors in there. It's going to be featuring New York Times bestselling author Julie Clark, USA Today bestselling author Carter Wilson, and Joshua Moling. The information to register is right there in the chat. So click on that, get yourself registered so you can come wish me a happy birthday and talk to our fabulous authors, of course. So thank you for joining us. We will see you next month. Everyone stay safe and happy reading. Thanks again, Reavis.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Y'all have a good one.